Think and Grow Rich was one of the first books I ever read, and it opened up the mind. I love what I do. I'm mostly passionate now about teaching others, getting other people to that financial freedom, so they can do the things that they want to do. Ultimately, I don't want to be remembered for the doors. I don't want to be remembered for the things that I own. I want to be remembered for the people that have helped. I like what real estate can do for people. And it creates that time for people to do whatever it is that they want to do with their lives.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec. And yet today we're talking to someone outside of Quebec. But we're going to talk to him because he's quite the real estate investor. So hi, Alfonso. How are you doing?
Hey, I love the Belle Provence. Quebec is where it's at.
It is. It is. And it's funny you say that because yesterday I was in Ottawa at a networking event, and quite a few people told me like, oh, I'd be scared to invest in Quebec because the laws and this and that. And I'm like, I don't see how it's any different than the rest of Canada. I mean, it's
mindset, right?
Exactly.
It's bad wherever we look at Alberta and we're like, oh man, those landlord tenant rules are good, but go talk to people in Alberta that have been burnt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can move all across the world and you get to find one guy that's going to be nasty, right? And so there's always going to be someone, and you just got to operate within the rules. And I mean, people are making money in Montreal.
Exactly.
I went there, I seen buildings and things going on. So there's money to be made everywhere, all over the world.
Everywhere almost on any type of property. Okay, but before we go into it, I just want to remind everyone, thank you for your support in listening. Please subscribe to the show, share it with a friend, send us some feedback, some comments, and if you have ideas and suggestions for people who could be on the show as wonderful guests to share their story, please reach out and let me know. So
hey, it's a must. You have to subscribe.
You have to subscribe. Thank you for insisting on that, Alfonso.
It's a must. Right. It's a must, right? Because
think
about what you're doing and the value you're bringing to the world. And the subscription, how much does it cost? Nothing. It's free.
Nothing.
Free to subscribe and have access to mine, like all these different mines and real estate investing, education. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's worth millions.
Yeah.
Millions.
And as a real estate investor, when I was doing some of our first deal, I did some of the renovation, and I've listened to hundreds of podcast episodes when I was working, and I've learned so much. Like, I joke with friends saying that I earned a master's degree in real estate just by listening to podcasts. And it's kind of true.
And you know what? And I still listen. I still, I'm like, people will consider me to be an expert. I've been doing this for 23 years. 23 years, and I'm still listening. I'm still learning. The second you stop learning, that's the second you start dying.
Decaying. Absolutely. Yeah. So actually, let's dive a little bit into your story here. I'd love to take like a couple minutes to know a little bit more about you, how you started 23 years ago, and then kind of where you're at now, and then a few goodies and surprises for after. So you started 23 years ago. What the hell took you to start investing in real estate?
Well, actually, it goes even further than that. So I came from El Salvador.
Yeah. So
I was born in El Salvador. Civil War at that time in the 70s. My mom was involved in some, she was a journalist and she was reporting. Eventually, she got shut down by the government, and we had to come to Canada, right? And it was a pretty big story at the time. We landed in Montreal. I was 5 years old, 1983, and because of the magnitude of the story. I mean, we were in the Montreal Gazette. We were all over the news in Canada, the U.S., all over the world, really, because there was some human rights issues there that were being abused on, and our government back home actually sent people to stop us or make sure that we didn't share our story. And so we had to run for our lives. And I was only here for a very short period of time, about 9 months, until we fled back to Latin America.
Okay.
So we moved to Nicaragua, which at the time was a communist country, and being supported by Russia. Okay. For whatever reason, Russia ran out of funding. We're now in the middle of a second civil war, and there's no food, right? So if you can imagine, going to the grocery store and the shelves are completely empty,
yeah.
right? And so and even living in the communist country, that mindset of portions and everyone having the same, but when there's nothing, everyone have equally nothing the same.
Yeah.
So we fled, and we went by ground. Like if you've seen that, there's probably those images in your mind of the convoys that are headed for the U.S. So we were part of those convoys. I mean, we had to travel by ground. We have to sneak underneath the border to make it into Mexico, where we applied as refugees to come back to Canada. And so all of this time, between the ages of 2 to 9, I've spent it, running away from wars and regimes and going from country to country. I missed a lot of educational opportunities.
Okay.
I didn't go to school like a normal kid. And, by the time we got to Canada, I'm 9 years old now. And the focus is to learn English, right? I had to learn English. So that became a big distraction, and trying to learn English and manage with all the things that you have to manage as a brand new Canadian. And, eventually I fell really behind on my studies. And, ultimately I became extremely frustrated with school altogether. And at 15, I left home, I left school, and I was completely on my own and living on the streets. And I hit a really, really dark point in my life. We had moved to Ottawa, and, I was panhandling for change on the streets. I was sleeping in banks, and I had a life-changing moment. And so in terms of the darkness, we've all been there. We've all been in a situation where we think, okay, this is like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And you could probably think of a moment right now in your mind, like, whoa, like a dark moment in your life. And that was my darkest moment at 15, kind of living on the streets, not knowing what's going to happen. I had zero confidence in myself, zero self-worth. And I had a life-changing moment at 17 when I became a father. And when they put that little girl in my arms, everything changed for me. I started taking responsibility over my life. I didn't have a father. My father ran away during the war. And I always thought, like, whoa, how can you leave your son behind?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to step up to the plate. No choice. And so this little girl, I named her Talia. She was like my guardian angel. And it gave me purpose. And for the first time in my life, I had something to fight for, And so I quickly went back to school. I got a job, $5 an hour. That's what they were paying back then. That was minimum wage. Hated the job, but had to do it. And I started a small business from my locker in high school. I was selling T-shirts and jeans and mixtapes from my locker. 17. By the time I was 19, I turned it into a physical location. By the time I was 21, I had locations all across Canada, and I became this like serial entrepreneur. And I was so in love with having control over my time. And think about it, I'm 21 years old. The problem was, even though I had a really successful nationwide business, stores all across Canada, I had no financial education.
Yeah.
My growing up back home, all my mom could ever tell me is, Alfonso, the best thing you're ever going to do for your life is get a university degree.
And get a job.
and get a job, right?
Yeah.
And so there was no financial education, even though my mom taught me amazing things and, about integrity, values.
Mm-hmm.
I had no financial education. So at 21, when I'm making all this money, it was coming in and it was going out, and it's the equivalent of someone winning the lottery,
Yeah.
of some NHL player or a
Yeah.
basketball player or a singer, or,
Yeah.
that
Who
does
makes
something.
who makes 2 million a year and who spends 2 million a year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what was going on. Shortly after 9/11, we got hit with a market correction at the time. Okay, so this is 2001, and it almost wiped me out. And the lesson that I got from that was, I better get my. Are we allowed to swear on this program? I better get my shit together.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a soft swear. I better get my stuff together because what are you going to do with your life? And do you remember why you were doing this in the first place? It was to make your daughter proud, and all this stuff. Now you're in a position where you're almost about to lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a decision that maybe I should educate myself. I'm in my early 20s. I had a mentor at the time. He had given me a book to read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Thinking
Classics.
Now, and we were talking about this, both of us before the podcast, that we were not very good students, and if I told you, I think only you would understand, I had never read a book cover to cover,
front to back
in my entire life. Okay, my whole high school, I'm the kind of guy that reads the back, and
ask friends for summaries.
exactly. Yeah. And so those was, Think and Grow Rich was one of the first books I ever read, and it opened up the mind.
Yeah.
Right. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it's like, whoa, I in my whole entire life, I've always told myself, like, you know what, like, you're not a good reader or whatever, but I became so addicted because these books were speaking to me. It was like a must,
Mm-hmm.
like you must subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
This is like, you must read, you must educate yourself.
Yeah.
And when I learned,
sorry, but like,
go ahead.
As you're reading these books, and I'm thinking of like Rich Dad, Poor Dad in particular, like, it's very actionable. You read this and it's like he almost lays down a recipe for you where you're like, oh my God, I don't need to be intelligent. I just need to follow the instructions.
That's it. And for me, growing up, thinking the only way you could do this is a university degree, and reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and realizing Robert Kiyosaki's Poor Dad is my mom, mm-hmm. right? Or it's so much value on that piece of paper, but yet they're not financially free.
Yeah.
So growing up, there was a discord and disconnect between academia and being free, mm-hmm. having financial freedom. And so what I realized quickly, number one, I was very much a consumer. I was not an investor. So I needed to shift the mindset to become more of an investor mindset. Number two, I only had one stream of income. I was very vulnerable. And so I said, whoa, I need to have multiple streams of income. And then doing my study of all of these successful people, what the common thread amongst all of these people was real estate. And so I said, I'm going to build the secondary stream of income that's going to be indestructible, Armageddon proof, right? And so I looked at real estate as that vehicle. And then I saw, okay, I can get into singles, I can get into all these things. But the reason I got into apartment buildings and multifamilies is because the economy of scale, mm-hmm. right? The idea that you have many customers, right? You're not going to open a business and have one or two customers.
No.
You got the economy of scale. You got the price per unit reduced because you're buying in bulk, the Costco effect. This is why we go to Costco. And the idea that you can spread the risk amongst many, 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 many units, right? And so to me, that was logical. And I started back in 2001. investing into real estate, and quickly got ahead in 2008, because by the time 2008 came, I was ready to go.
Yeah.
I had reduced my cost of living. I was already, I had a portfolio, and my mindset had been completely changed. And we hit this. Now, Canada had a correction,
Mhm.
but in the US was a crash.
Yeah.
But what happened in Canada for the if you're buying multifamily or apartment buildings, the money disappeared.
Yeah.
Like lending disappeared.
Credit disappeared,
Yeah.
evaporated.
And so what was left is what you know,
Mhm.
the ability to put things together creatively. And since that time, I've been able to accumulate a portfolio of around 600 doors, multi-million dollar portfolio all across Canada and the US. And I love what I do. I'm mostly passionate now about teaching others, getting other people to that financial freedom, so they can do the things that they want to do.
Yeah. No, totally. And that's a very inspiring story. I think that resonates with a lot of people because a lot can identify with some of the items that you said. And it's funny because as you were talking about choosing to invest in multifamily and in real estate overall, recently saw Kevin O'Leary in Toronto. And one thing he mentioned is talked about the stock market, talked about crypto, talked a lot of about a lot of different investments. And he was like, but there is one where the price will never go to zero, and that's real estate. And so people always say, oh, you need to have a balanced portfolio. You need to have so much of this, so much of that. And it's like, yeah, but it's okay to have a lot more real estate because that value will never disappear. And that's something that resonates with a lot of people that, to put it in simple terms, like real estate is something that if we slightly educate ourselves, we can understand well, we can control it, we can force appreciation, we have tax advantages, we benefit from appreciation, and best of all, it's actually someone else who pays for it.
Oh yeah, like I
It's
mean,
amazing.
the this idea of time, right? And um, having that commodity of time, and that, as we know, like time is the most valuable asset that we have. Every other commodity in life, there's an abundance of
Mhm.
money, air, water, food. I mean, everything there's an abundance of, except for this one finite commodity, which is time.
Yeah.
Once time is gone, it's gone.
You can't buy it back.
You can't. You
No.
can't. And the idea that that you can buy other people's time, leverage other people's time, is a concept that a lot of people don't understand. When you have an apartment building, each one of those tenants has to go and exchange their most valuable asset, which is time, for money. And they come back and pay you 30 to 40% of that income for them to rent your unit, to give you back your time.
Yeah.
And so think about how much time you own in terms of, having an apartment building. You have a 10 unit or a 15 unit building. You own that people's time, indirectly, really.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they're going out to work and coming back and giving your time back. Now, that makes people extremely upset, right? 2020 election, it was discovered that Donald Trump only paid $700
And taxes.
$700 in taxes, personal taxes, and everybody was outraged,
Yeah.
right? Everybody was outraged, but they're asking the wrong question. The question should be, how can we do that for ourselves? How can we do that for our families,
Mhm.
right? Because as an investor, we know exactly how he paid $700 in personal taxes, right? We know that. As an investor, we know that. And so the key is, for a lot of people, they get the 96% of the people, they become upset. They're like, oh, we shouldn't have to pay for rent, or we shouldn't have to go and pay half of, or 30% of her income for living, why do you get upset that? Why not become the landlord, right?
Yeah.
And so society says, and even my mom says, used to tell me when I was a kid, don't pay rent because you're making your landlord rich. Get yourself a house, you know? And so the message, I see where the message is going, but it's the wrong message.
Mm-hmm.
The message should be become the landlord.
And try to put as many units under one roof.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Become the landlord should be the message,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And who cares about paying rent? Pay rent, don't pay rent, really doesn't matter. Become a landlord.
It's whether you pay rent or not is secondary if you're a landlord in the first place. Okay. And so just moving along, you said like now something that you care a lot about is educating and helping others to do that and achieve that financial freedom and build that family wealth. Now, you have a program that coaches people, but most importantly, like I was going to say, what kind of asset class and are there particular locations that you're particularly orienting your students towards, or that you'd be encouraging everyone to be buying into?
Yeah, so not anything in particular, because we have people that start off very different, and the journey was going to be different for everyone. This is what I'll tell you. When I was 30 years old, I'm 45 now, so that's 15 years ago. I was financially free. Like I didn't have to work another day in my life. And I took a long extended vacation. And I don't know if you've ever done this, go to, you probably went to a resort in Dominican Republic or whatnot. And
Actually, no.
No, okay,
No.
well, I'll tell you what happens. So I usually would go a week, and towards the end of the week, you're like, oh, I don't want to go home. I want to stay. This time, because now I'm financially free, I have all of my time. I said, I'm going to go for 2 weeks. And those were like such miserable weeks for me, because the first week is just like any other week. The second week, it's like Groundhog Day. The resort is everything is the same except with different people.
Yeah.
And I remember being so miserable and thinking, is this the rest of my life? Is this what I'm really going to do for the rest of my life? And I said to myself, you know what? I want to live a life of fulfillment, And I realized that what I wanted to do is because everyone has this vision of themselves, of what they would do if they had all of their time back. What would that life look like? And a lot of people have this vision of them sitting on the beach for the rest of their lives. And that's what media sells. But what I realized, because I had the same vision until I got there and I realized this sucks, right? Like, that's not what I want. I want to live a life of fulfillment.
Yeah.
And that life of fulfillment meant I had to
back.
do something, give back. And I realized what I could do is create financial freedom for people.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that I can bring to the world. And that's when I started about 15 years ago, coaching, training, mentoring, speaking, building my own programs, courses, all of that stuff about 15 years ago. And I seen all of the impact that I can have on this world. I've created hundreds, if not thousands, of millionaires, and I've given not for the money, because I know that if I give people back their time, they're going to do amazing things in the world. I know they're not going to sit on a beach for the rest of their lives. And so that is so fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
And that has become a big part of my why and my passions and why I do things. And ultimately, I don't want to be remembered for the doors. I don't want to be remembered for the things that I owned. I want to be remembered for the people that have helped. And that is in my core, right?
Yeah.
That's what I do. So, I can take someone from any walk of life, and the objective is to compress time. So whatever the 10-year goal or whatever the 20-year goal is, we can compress time. We can make it a 1 or 2 year reality.
Yeah.
because most people don't understand the power of tapping into someone else's systems. I've already done this. I've been doing this for 23 years. Like, no one has to reinvent the wheel.
No. And it's funny, as I hear you say that, it's something that really resonates with me. And as you say, we talked a little bit about it before the podcast, is that part of the reason why I created the podcast is because our real estate investing had a huge impact on our lives with my wife and the kids and so on. And it was my way of trying to help as many people have confidence to start investing in real estate, because yeah, it's a bit intimidating, but it's not that complicated. Let's be honest. You just need to have confidence, and you just need to educate yourself, and then you just need to take a slight risk. But when you say like, oh, I don't want to be remembered for the doors, but for the people that I've helped. Yeah. And my mother often reminds me, when you die, you don't take anything with you. What stays is the impact that you've had in people's lives. And when people come to your funeral, they don't say he had 600 doors. Is, remember that time when he shared that advice? That had such an impact for me. And that's what matters. Is the people side, is the dent that we can make in the world, instead of the physical things that people see as the result of our effort of, oh, wow, he bought a 40 units. At the end, no one cares about that.
No one cares about that.
No.
I like what real estate can do for people, and it creates that time for people to do whatever it is that they want to do with their lives. I know that if we can give enough people back their time, it would be like Renaissance on Earth, right? It would be people. Because I'm so confident in people, and everyone has that vision that I want to sit on the beach for the rest of my life. But I'm telling you, once they get there, they're going to be bored, and they're going to want to have an impact on this world. A lot of people don't see themselves as having the ability to have an impact or a say or have a contribution, but everyone has that ability. Just no one has the time.
Yeah. And then real estate investing is really 80% mindset and 20% technical. So as long as you can,
I would say 99% mindset.
99. Okay. I mean, we as much as we slightly disagree on the proportion, the principle stays the same.
Yeah. So like the thing is, like, I and I'm the first one to admit it. Like, look, I didn't do good in school. I wasn't a really good student. If you saw my marks, you would not say, oh, this guy is going to own a multi-million-dollar portfolio one day. That's not what my teachers were saying about me.
You just proved them wrong.
But, my ability comes from leadership. Mm-hmm. And if you want to become if you want to build a big portfolio, if you want to do anything in your life, you have to study leadership. And a lot of it is mindset, leadership, and people. The gap between where you are and where you want to go is always people, right? Most people say, well, you know what? I don't want to have to hire people. I don't want to have to work with people or whatever. But that's the only way to expand, right? Yeah. Right. And you're gonna have to work with people, and a lot of people think that it's a lot. You have to be the owner of all the information. You can hire really smart people to manage your business, right? Mm-hmm. And the mindset is having the ability to oversee the business, not working in the business all the time. Yeah. And the people that were sitting next to me getting the A's, the A pluses, A pluses, A pluses, A pluses, those people are amazing people to be the integrators in your company.
Yeah. But those aren't necessarily the people who have the vision. They've been trained to think in a certain way. And and I like what you said, and I'll share it right before the podcast when we started. And my name is Axel. You read it as Alex, and I joked that, hey, it's okay, I'm dyslexic too. And you said, yeah, I am dyslexic. And so, what is it that you said about people who are dyslexic?
Yeah, so they're right now. So LinkedIn has a feature where it talks about you can identify certain skills,
Mhm.
like troubleshooting or problem solver. So those are like very specific skill sets that people have. Dyslexic thinking now has been added to those skill sets. So when you're looking for, and when an employer is looking for an employee and they see, oh, dyslexic thinking, what does that mean? They can go and look it up, and even in the dictionary, they can include that as a skill.
Mm.
It's a very special skill set, right? And it's a very different way of thinking in terms of having that bigger picture, right? So being dyslexic means I don't focus on small details. I focus on high level high level
You.
a high level view of whatever it is that I'm looking at.
Mhm.
And so that really makes me a better leader, right? Because I need people. I hire the right people, sort of like Richard Branson. Richard Branson is also, and he was a big advocate for creating that dyslexic thinking, as making that as an official skill. But that's been a skill for a long time. Einstein, as you know, was dyslexic. Steven Spielberg. A lot of the people that have come to this planet and have created amazing things have been dyslexic.
So that's something that we share. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, that connected us right away.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, like within a minute, we were talking about that. We didn't even start recording yet.
Yeah.
That was funny. So as we're wrapping up here, where can people find out more about you?
Listen, I tell this to people all the time. Whatever platform, whatever you're on, look for me. If I'm not there, shame on me. I'm on TikTok. The best place, and I would say the best place to start would be on my YouTube channel. You can subscribe to your channel and
your channel.
In my channel, find me. Just go Alfonso Quadra on the search. You'll find my channel. Subscribe. I have about 800 videos, and if anything I say there resonates with you, you can reach out.
Okay. That's good to know, and that's pretty straightforward. So, hey, Alfonso, thank you very much. It's been a really fun conversation, and I like how all this is technically about real estate, but we mostly talked about your story and mindset and how people see the world and how much of a difference it makes. So, thank you. It's really appreciated.
Listen, you have an incredible platform here. Congratulations, and it was an honor being here with you.
Purpose powerful enough will make you unstoppable.